Hello, my name is Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Steps Training, and we're going to be doing Violet's demonstration today. Through this demonstration, we're going to cover all 5 steps of our program, starting with socialization, then moving into manners, obedience commands, house training, and leash training. We're definitely excited to send her to you. I think she's just a wonderful dog with a very fun personality. But before we dive into the program and letting her out and showing you what she can do, just a few things that I like to remind everyone. The first is that she's still a puppy, as well as she's a living and breathing animal, and so she's definitely subject to changes in her environment. And so when we send her to you, there's going to be a transition period, there's going to be stress, and so throughout the demonstration I might talk a little bit about that and just mention a few things that go along with that. But as you get her home, just allow her to adjust, allow her to get used to you and to your home, and enjoy having this wonderful puppy. But a couple other things that I like to tell people is just a few words that you're going to hear me use. The first is okay. So okay is our marker and our release word. And so that means that it marks the correct behavior and releases from a stay. And so you'll hear me use that quite a bit. Anytime she does something right or we're finished with the command, I'll tell her okay. The second thing you might hear me use would be no or nope. Now, that's our correction term. So I treat that, it's kind of variable. And so regardless, if she does something wrong, I'm going to tell her no. Now, depending on how serious it is where you're going to come in with a couple indicators. And so what I mean there is the two biggest things for a dog to read is your voice fluctuation and your body language. And so if she does something more serious, if you can adjust those two things and give her more of a firm correction, that's going to mean a lot more to her than a physical correction. And so if she does something simple like breaks a stay, I'll tell her no and I'll have her do it again. Whereas if she jumps on me or tries to steal food, I'm going to be a little bit more firm in my correction. So with that, we'll jump in. Well, actually, we'll talk about our socialization. And so socialization is one of the most important things with a new puppy. And that's definitely one of the biggest things in our program. And so for the first 2 weeks, that's all we did was socialize. And when we do that, we take them out, get them used to different animals, different people, places, noises, as many new things as possible. And we do that in a controlled environment so that we can control whether it's going to be extremely frightening or whether it's just going to be something new, and we can help them become comfortable in those new situations. And so by doing so, we can protect against having any timidness or anxiety issues or aggression. So, and we also focus on that throughout the whole program. Doing commands on different surfaces is a big one. Doing them outside versus inside, just changing up as many little variables as we can. That way we're helping them so that they can be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. So with that, we'll move into our manners. So the first thing on our manners portion would be her gates and her doorways. So anytime she comes out of the crate or goes through the house door or goes through a gate, I expect her to hold a stay. Now this should be an automatic behavior, but however, because she's a puppy, there's always going to be times where she's going to test the waters a little bit and she's going to be looking for a reaction for you. And so if she tries to break, I might just simply shut the door or I might lift my leg and block her. But for the most part, this should be an automatic behavior. And if for some reason she's just really trying to push her way out, then I might stop and actually tell her to stay. However, I'll show you right now, getting her out, she should just stay automatically. Okay, good girl. So I'll show you that same thing with the house door when we go outside. And you'll just notice anytime I take her out, I expect her to wait until I tell her okay. So her next manner is what she's doing now. We consider it her greeting. And so I make a rule of that before my dog gets any attention, they need to be sitting first. And then I'll go ahead and pet them or give them a treat or kind of do whatever we're doing next. And so that's if, anytime you call her near you. So if I, come here. So before I give her any attention, she needs to sit. And that's another one of those automatic behaviors. Shouldn't have to tell her, she should just do it. However, if she does hesitate, then I might just tell her to stay. So next would be her mealtime manners. So for her, food is definitely a huge motivator, and she definitely loves it. And so I've been feeding her in a slow feeding bowl to get her to slow down and actually eat it instead of just swallow it. That way she's not choking or having any issues there, as well as it's helping her relax and whatnot. So I'll show you her mealtime. Come here. I'll get her out. Anytime I feed her, I expect her to hold a sit stay. So as she's sitting there, I'll just tell her, stay. Now her meals is a great time to really work on stays. We have what we call the 3Ds, and that's distance, duration, and distraction. So talking like this is a huge distraction for a dog. Also, you can kick the food bowl. You can change it up in how long you make them stay, as well as the distance between you and them, or them and the food bowl. And you can see she wanted to break there, but she managed to hold on. And so we'll go ahead and release her. Okay, good girl. So yeah, those 3Ds, distance, duration, distraction, those are what build a solid stay. Another thing that we like to do when they're eating is I do like to spend some time with my hands down in their food bowl. I want to make sure that there's not any type of aggression over their food. And that's very important, especially for me, because I do have small children and I don't want them to ever go up and stick their hands in a food bowl and get bit or growled at. And so, yeah, making sure they're comfortable with me being around their food is huge. Another thing that we do, not necessarily with their food, but just to prevent any type of aggression, is we like to make sure that we handle them. So whether it's their ears, whether it's their paws, tail, any of these sensitive areas on a dog, I want to make sure that they're relaxed and allow me to handle them. It also makes it very nice for vet visits if they're getting their nails clipped or anything like that. So you can also take her food bowl away if her paw wasn't on the bowl. And you can use her mealtime to really work on those stays, and so you can feed her, a couple times for each meal. And so then I'll just tell her to stay again. Okay. I also like this bowl with the rubber bottom because she likes to push her bowl around trying to get it. And especially these slow feeding bowls. They get really antsy and start trying to tip it over and whatnot. So we'll let her eat some and then we'll move on. So with that, a couple other manners. A big one for her was jumping, and so she was definitely a very jumpy dog, and so we spent a lot of time working on that, and we've taught her the command off, and so that's whether she jumps up on me or whether she tries to jump up in a chair or a couch. I tell her off and I expect her to get down. Come here. And that's also why the greeting is so important, having her sit first, is because then she's not jumping on me. And also with the greeting, you do have her eye contact, and so she's focused on you. But also I would recommend leaving a leash attached. That way if she does jump up on you or one of your children or up on the couch, you do have a way that you can. Okay, outside. Outside. Where she rang the bell, we're going to take her out. I expect her to wait. Okay. Okay. So, jumping. So off is the command. And I was saying before, I like to have a leash attached. That way if she does try and jump, whether it be on me or one of your children, you have a way that you can give her a correction. And so our leash correction, all it is just simple 2 little pops on the leash. You're not trying to jerk her off or pull her backwards. You're just letting her know you're there. And so 2 quick pops with the word off. You can also say no there as well. Now, there's a couple important things with jumping. And that's if she's running at you, you can just tell she's going to jump, or you're nervous that she's going to jump. It's important that you never step back. As soon as you step back, you're encouraging that jump. You always want to step into it. That way, you're restricting space. You're making it so that she doesn't have as much room to jump. And if she does, you can simply bring up your knee and block her and tell her off. Sweetheart. Now, the one thing that you'll notice with jumping, especially in a dog that definitely like to jump prior, is that they always find someone in the family that they think they're above in the pack order. And so that's the person that they jump on. It's usually the youngest child. And so a great exercise you can do there is you can take them by the leash and have that person call them, and then you walk them up, and as soon as they try and jump, you give them that leash correction, say off, turn around, walk the other direction. And you can do that a handful of times until she just approaches and sits down. Now, she's been doing really well, and so I don't expect that you'd have very many problems. But if she does try and jump on you or one of your kids, make sure you're stepping into it and giving her that correction. Especially in these next 2 weeks with the transition, she is going to be looking for information from you, what she can and can't get away with. And so if you set that boundary now and make sure that she understands that you expect the same things that I do, then you'll have a lot of success. So another manner would be chewing. And chewing's huge for a puppy. And I believe, so she's right in the middle of chewing, and so, or teething. And so she definitely needs to chew. And so with that, we train on a base of avoiding and replacing. If you can avoid giving her free access to toys, to shoes, to anything like that, of course that's going to be your best way to prevent a disaster from happening. However, that's not really possible in your house. You're always going to have something that she can chew on, whether it's a couch or a table leg or a pillow or something like that. And so that's when replacing comes in. If she goes and starts chewing on something hard like a table leg, I'll tell her no, and I'll replace it with something like this bully stick, something hard, and so you're basing it on texture. Nope. Good girl. Where if she starts chewing on her bed or a pillow or something, you can give her something soft, something that she can really dig into. Now, with that, boredom is the #1 time where chewing disasters occur. So if you just have a downtime, whether you're watching a movie or she's just going to be lounging around the house, I would just give her something to chew on. Now, it's important that as soon as she's finished, you take it away. That way you maintain some excitement that goes along with it, as well as she doesn't have free access. And that way you can also change it up. You can interchange her toys, and so there's always going to be something exciting about it, and she's not going to get bored and go find something else. So the next couple manners would be dealing with her mouth. And you saw me with that bully stick, how when she lunged up I pulled it back and I gave it to her real, or I made her take it very soft. She's definitely, like I said, very food motivated, and so anything like that she can get a little bit aggressive towards. And that's just her trying to take it real quick, and she ends up getting you with her teeth. And so I've spent a lot of time working on that. And that's part of the reason we held her an extra week, is because I wanted to make sure that she was going to respond. And so the first one of those commands would be gently. Come here. And so that's anytime she's taking a treat. If you can tell she's going to be, if she's already real excited, then I would just make her sit. I would tell her gently and expect her to be very cautious taking the treat. And I go slow going to give it to her, because if she does ever leave the ground or seems like she's real excited, I can pull it away and tell her gently and let her take it with her lips or her tongue. And that's been huge. She's done really, really well this week, where we spent a lot of time on it. She's being a lot more gentle. And so, like I said, anytime that I can tell that she's real wound up, I'll just tell her gently before I even present a treat. And that's kind of the same thing I did with that bully stick. kind of gradually giving it to her. As soon as she lunged, I pulled it away and made her relax and take it very softly. So the second is drop it. And so I don't ever want her to try and tug or resist me taking something from her. I want her to freely give it up. And so that's where drop it comes in. And she's done very well. And I just expect her to release anything that she has when I tell her to drop it. And so it's important that she physically releases it. And so I'll show you that. She'll bring it back. So I'll just grab it and I'll tell her to drop it. Good girl, and I just want her to spit it out, just like that. And so, yeah, just tell her, drop it, and she should just give it up. Now you have to be careful with these soft plush toys, as sometimes their teeth can get caught in them, and you don't want to be pulling, and that's why it's important that she physically releases it. But also their teeth can get caught in it, and you'll end up pulling out a tooth, and it'll hurt her a little bit. So. One thing that you can know is that if she has something that she just doesn't want to give up and it's long enough, you can grab it on both sides. You just want to hold it really still and make it very unappealing. And most of the time they'll just give it up. If they don't, you can just pinch your knuckles in and kind of pinch their teeth against their gums, and they should just spit it out. But she's done really well. And so you can just grab it from her and tell her drop it. Drop it. Good girl. Good girl. Now, along with that, one of the biggest times dog behavior is mistaken for aggression is with children. Children are like the greatest thing ever. They run, they squeal, they make things a lot of fun. And so your dog just wants to play along with, and they end up chasing him down, and they might grab a pant leg or an arm, and it's mistaken as aggression. You know, that dog bit my child, something of that sort. And so I just recommend anytime you have children play with your dog, have them play with them with a toy. That way the dog has something to go for, as well as if the child gets a little bit nervous, they can throw the toy and the dog can go with the toy instead of grabbing a pant leg. But with that, we'll move into our commands. So with our obedience commands, we have 8 big ones that we focus on. The first 2 that we teach them are watch me and come. And then we do sit, stay, down, stay, crate, and go to bed. And so we'll start with watch me. So watch me is our most basic command. All it is looking for their eye contact. Watch me. Okay. That's all I want, is her just looking up at me. The reason that's important is because dogs have a single track mind. So whatever they're looking at, that's what they're thinking about. And so if you can get that eye contact, you have 100% of their attention. And that's a great command that you can just practice at home, just so that they get used to the way that you reward them. And all you're doing is looking to get them distracted. Even you can hold the treat away from your body, watch me, and look for that eye contact. Now we've started doing the same thing with our name. I'll say it the same way and I expect the same behavior. Violet, okay, good girl, good girl. Just looking for that eye contact. So the second command that we teach, the second most basic, would be come. And so that's very simple. All it is getting your dog to come to you. Violet, come! Good girl. Good girl. Now, come is a very important command. It's also the first one that people break. And the reason being is because it's overused. Or you don't have a reward with it. And so when I say that, it's like, if you're in the house and the dog's just wandering around, if you're always telling her to come, then she's not going to think anything of it when she doesn't respond, basically, because it's just overused in the house. And so if you're in the house, I would suggest doing something, anything like that, getting her to come over. You want to maintain the integrity of come. You want to make sure that anytime you ask her to come, she's going to come immediately. And so, with that, I also keep a strict rule of 10 to 1. I'm going to call her to me 10 times for no reason at all, other than just to give her a reward and let her go again for the one time that I have to call her to come. That way, she's going to respond, and even if you don't have a reward with you. I would also say that if you don't have to call her to come, don't. Like I said, in the house, don't. Or if you're going to leave the park, something like that, just hook a leash on and go. I would also suggest just practicing that a lot, keeping that rule of 10 to 1, and even surpassing it's great. Just making sure that that's one that's very solid, and like I said, that's a very important one for me. So the next 3 commands have hand signals, and that's sit, which is a scoop over the nose, down, which I'll just go down to the ground, and stay is a stop sign, and we have stays for both of those. And so I'll pull her out, come here, sit, sit, down, stay. And so you'll notice there I didn't ever use the marker, where it's kind of a chain command. I also didn't give her a treat after each segment. It comes at the end. Okay, good girl. You can see I'm being very cautious giving her the treats because she was getting a little excited there. And so I don't want her to end up grabbing me or even jumping for the treat. And so the next one would be sit stay. And so she's already sitting, but if she's not, it's just scoop over the nose. I'll just tell her stay. And add those 3Ds. Add that distance, duration, distraction. Really try and build those stays up. Right now she has a phenomenal puppy stay, but I wouldn't be satisfied with it. Always seek to be improving. Okay, good girl. Good girl. And I'll show you that down stay again. Sit. Down. Stay. Okay. Good girl. Good girl. So the next 2 commands don't necessarily have hand signals, but I'll always put myself in a position to let her read my body language. And so for instance, go to bed. I'll just point, go to bed. I don't care what position she's in, as long as all 4 paws are on the bed. I'm also going to give her the treat at the beginning on this one because I expect her to stay on the bed, and being released from that stay is a reward in itself. Okay, good girl. The same with go to bed, or sorry, with crate, is I'll just point, crate. Now when I send her in there, she's expected to stay until released. If it helps you, you can shut the door. Now that's also a command that I would use that same rule of 10 to 1. You don't want to just use it whenever you're locking her up. Otherwise, a negative association will be built, and she won't want to go in her crate because she knows you're going to lock her up. Okay, good girl. Once again, it's just crate. Okay, good girl. Good girl. Now, with that, we'll move into her house training, and we'll also talk about her crate training. So with her crate training, we've spent a lot of time making sure that she's comfortable in her crate. And so at this point, she's good to sleep through the night, 8 to 10 hours without needing a break. She's also good for up to a 4-hour block during the day without needing a break. Now, with that being said, the transition always causes some stress, and so a lot of times that results in them having to use the bathroom more or getting a loose stool, something like that. And so if she does start to whine in the crate in the middle of the night, I would just let her out, go to the restroom, take her outside, go to the bathroom, and bring her right back in and put her back in her crate. Don't ever let her just out and about after she's been whining in the crate. Otherwise she'll start whining just because she thinks that it'll get her out. Now, it's very common for when you do first put her into the crate, she'll whine a little bit for a minute or two as she starts to settle down. If she's really whining the first couple days, I might give her a bully stick, something to chew on to help her relax, or you can also put a blanket over just to, once again, help her relax, something like that. However, within these next 2 weeks, she should be back to where she's quiet in the crate, sleeping through the night, no worries. Now with that, we generally put them to bed about 10 o'clock, and then we get them out between 6:30 and 7. And so we also try and feed her first thing in the morning as soon as we let her out. Then I'll also give her about a cup during the day, and then at night we feed her as close to 6 o'clock as possible. That way she has a good 4 o'clock or 4 o'clock, sorry, 4-hour window to clear her bowels and whatnot before you put her up, and that saves you a lot as well. And house training, she just rang the bell again, so we're going to take her outside to go to the bathroom. Okay. Okay. So, now I'll just explain what we just did and teach you how to do it at your house. So, the first thing I do when you get her home is most likely she'll have to go to the bathroom. And so I would take her out to the area where you've designated that she go. And I'll take her to that area on a leash and I'll pace her around a minute or two. And every once in a while I'll say the word outside. So outside is our marker word for going to the bathroom. And so, like I said, give her a minute or two. When she goes, you want to make it very positive, very rewarding. And so I'll give her a treat, I'll tell her good outside, I'll give her a good rub down, you know, make it very, very rewarding. And so that way you can mark the behavior as well as that's marking that area. And so then the next step in the house training will be targeting the bell, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. And so basically, when she gets to your house, she's not going to know where the bell's at, she's not going to know where the door's at, she's not going to be used to your house, and so you're going to have to reteach her these things. And so if you do it the same way I do it, it should just be a quick transition. And so first you just want to get as many repetitions as possible. And so that's why I start with just targeting the bell. I'll have her sit in front of me, I'll have a handful of treats, and I'll hang it right in front of her. As soon as she touches it, okay, I'll tell her okay. I'll do that, 4 or 5 times, just having her sit in front of you. If for some reason she's not wanting to ring the bell right in front of you, you can drag it around, have her chase it, just get her real excited about the bell, because you just want her to seek it out. So after you do that a handful of times, just having her touch it right there, saying, okay, I'd move over to the door. Come here. And so I would just sit off the door a little bit. Every time she touches it, say, okay. Do that 4 or 5 times. And then actually hang it on the door and just, okay. Have her ring it on the door a handful of times, okay. And then, I'm going to take it away for a second, switch the word to outside. As soon as you start marking outside, have her ring it, 2 or 3 times, outside, and say outside instead of okay. After about 3 times of her ringing it right there, outside, then I would say, you want to go outside, really emphasizing outside, and then take her out from there. As soon as you start doing that, as soon as you take her out, when she rings the bell, from that point on, you're going to take her out basically every time she rings the bell. The only exception to that is in these 30-minute blocks, which I'm going to talk about. But after, after this day forward, every time she touches the bell, no questions asked, you're just taking her out. And so now that I did that, of course you can see she's actively looking for the bell, and that's what we want at your house. And so after I do that the first time, do those steps, take her out the first time to using the word outside, then I would set a timer for 30 minutes. And the first 30 minutes, I would sit near the bell to see if she'll go out and ring it on her own. As soon as 30 minutes are up, take her by the leash, go over to the bell, have her ring it probably 2 or 3 times. Outside, outside. Okay, you want to go outside? Let's go outside, and then take her out. For the next day or 2, I would keep her on a 30-minute timer. As soon as the timer goes out, take her to the bell, have her ring it 3 or 4 times, and go outside. When you go outside, pace around for a minute or 2, every once in a while saying the word outside. she goes, make it very positive. If she doesn't go, just come back in. After the next 2 days of doing that, then I would start lengthening it. Right now, our standard is 2 hours without needing a break, and she's definitely met that. But within these first 2 weeks, you want her to ring the bell as many times as possible. And so I would keep her on the timer and slowly build her up to 2 hours. Now I would also, like I said, that first day I would be somewhat near the bell. Then you can start lengthening your distance as well, so that she's actively going out and seeking the bell. And it's very important that every time she rings the bell, you take her out to go to the bathroom, come right back in. Don't ever stay outside and play. Otherwise you'll get a puppy that just wants to ring the bell to go and play. If you say you were going to go outside and play and she rings the bell, take her out to the bathroom, come back in, wait a minute, and then go back out. A couple really important things with the house training. One is I would keep that leash attached to her for the next couple weeks. That way if she does try and squat, you have a way that you can quickly grab her and get her out. The second thing is 100% attention. And that part I cannot emphasize enough. 100% supervision. If you can't give her that supervision, put her in the crate, use it as an asset, she'll be completely fine. But you don't want to give her the opportunity to have an accident in your house. I would also, if you have a very large house, I might just block off a portion so that it's easier to keep track of her. Also, there's less corners for her to go off and maybe find one and try and squat. If she does try and squat, you can grab her by that leash, but I'll also make it very negative. And I do that by stomping my feet, by clapping, yelling, ah, no, 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 anything like that to try and frighten her to get her to stop so that you can take her out and have her finish out there. Now, if you do have any questions with the house training, do not hesitate to call me, to shoot me an email. Let me help you make sure that we transfer this the best that we can. Because if you do it right, you give her that 100% supervision, you would get her to where she's ringing the bell, then you won't even have an accident in your house at all. And that's a very realistic goal. But the critical part is 100% supervision and helping her get those repetitions in. But she's done really well. We were a little bit nervous a couple weeks ago because she was ringing the bell really well, and then she stopped and we had a couple accidents. But now, this past 2 weeks, she's just been solid. And so definitely really happy with where she's at. And you've seen her ring the bell twice during this demonstration, and she has gone both times. But any questions at all, please give me a call. But with that, we'll move into the last portion, which is our leash training. So now with our leash training, we take them on 2 types of walks. The first would be a long leash or an off leash walk. And that walk is just strictly for her to be a dog. We take them up into the mountains or down by the river, and we just let her run, sniff, just play. And that's a really critical walk for them, just for their mental health, that they can get out and to just basically release stress, just run and play. But when I go for that type of walk, what I'll do is I'll take a pocket full of treats, and every minute or two, I'll call her back, give her a reward, let her go. And that way I'm working on come, I'm building a solid come, even when I'm out amongst abundant distractions, as well as I'm having her check in so she's not getting too far out and she's not going to get into trouble. Now, before I take her off leash though, I would make sure that she's responding really well to you, that you feel like she is going to come when called and she's not going to bolt, which I don't feel like you'd have any problems there. However, you never know when you get them home into a new situation. And so I definitely give it a little while before you take her off leash. You can go to basically any sporting goods store and get a long lead, 30, 50 feet, and I'll just tie them to me and let her go and let her still be able to run and play and have fun and get her to the point where she's responding really well. So the second type of walk is her attention walk. And that's like your walk around the block or a nice Sunday evening walk, things like that. And I'll actually go outside and show you that. But before we go out there are 2 commands. The first is easy. And so if she tries to pull, I tell my trainers to become a tree. And so you want to plant yourself, and if she tries to pull, I'll give her a simple leash correction, just those 2 pops, and tell her easy. At that point, I expect her to put the slack back in the leash and stop pulling. Now, if she ever does find a distraction, say a squirrel ran across the road and she just wants to go after it. At that point, I would tell her easy, and if she just is still pulling, I'll give her that leash correction. I'll turn around and walk the other direction and tell her let's go. Wait till she gets her composure, and then you can continue on the way you were going before. If that distraction's still there, I would just do that as many times as it takes her to get some composure and be able to walk up to the distraction. So the second command is let's go, which I just mentioned just briefly, but that's just signifying we're moving and we're going this way. And so with that, we'll go outside in the road and I'll show you her walk. Pay attention to the way that she walks next to me. I expect her to be in a basic heel, which is just to the side with a nice loose leash, periodically checking in. And so let's go outside. I also like to have her sit before we get going. That way we can start it with a little bit of composure, and then she's already ready to pay attention to the road. And so now that we're going to start, I'll just tell her, let's go. Thanks for allowing us to train your puppy. We really enjoyed